This is going to make you furious, and I'm not apologizing for it because what I'm about to show you represents one of the most brazen constitutional threats we've seen in years. On Monday, February the 2nd, 2026, just days ago, a member of the current presidential administration stood on national television and openly declared that legally licensed gun owners will go to jail just for bringing their firearms into Washington, D.C. Not criminals, not violent offenders, not people breaking laws. Law-abiding American citizens who followed every rule, obtained every permit, did everything their government demanded, and exercised their constitutionally protected rights. The United States Attorney for the District of Columbia didn't couch this threat in legal nuance or careful language. She said it plainly, directly, unambiguously. Bring a gun into D.C., go to jail. She doesn't care if you have a license from another jurisdiction. She doesn't care if you're a responsible gun owner. She doesn't care about your constitutional rights. You will be arrested, you will be jailed, and you should hope you get your firearm back eventually. This isn't some hypothetical future scenario we need to worry about. This is happening right now in February 2026 in your nation's capital from an official appointed by an administration that campaigned on protecting Second Amendment rights. Every gun owner in America needs to understand what this means and why this moment demands an immediate response. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on notifications because what comes next exposes the systematic betrayal of constitutional principles by the very people who swore to defend them. Start with the actual words that came from this government official's mouth because some people will claim this is being exaggerated or taken out of context or misrepresented for political purposes. Here's exactly what the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia said on national television. You bring a gun into this district, you mark my words, you're going to jail. I don't care if you have a license in another district, and I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else. You bring a gun into this district, count on going to jail, and hope you get the gun back. She didn't suggest this might happen. She didn't say it could happen under certain circumstances. She guaranteed it. She promised it. She threatened American citizens with criminal prosecution and incarceration for exercising constitutionally protected rights that the Supreme Court has repeatedly affirmed exist and cannot be infringed by state or local jurisdictions. Now think about what that actually means when you strip away the tough-on-crime rhetoric and examine what she's really saying. A government official is openly claiming that law-abiding Americans, people who did everything right, who followed every regulation, who passed background checks, who obtained licenses, who trained properly, will be criminalized and locked up simply for exercising their pre-existing constitutional rights. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't fear-mongering. This isn't partisan spin. This is actually happening right now, captured on video, broadcast nationally, stated explicitly by someone with prosecutorial authority who has the power to follow through on these threats. And gun owners need to wake up to the reality of what's being done to them by their own government. Think carefully about what this means for real Americans living real lives. You go through the entire process, you get trained properly, you obtain your carry permit from your home state, you follow every law, every regulation, every requirement that government imposes on you. You travel to your own nation's capital, a city that belongs to all Americans, funded by American taxpayers, governed under the United States Constitution, and you're told that just for having your legally owned firearm with you, you're going to jail. That is criminalization of lawful conduct, and Americans should not and will not tolerate it. This isn't someone defending criminal activity or violent wrongdoing. This isn't someone suggesting violent offenders shouldn't be prosecuted. This is about law-abiding gun owners, the backbone of American gun rights, the people who actually follow the rules, being threatened with arrest simply for possessing their firearms. That's not law enforcement. That's intimidation. That's tyranny, and the Constitution means more than any prosecutor's tough-talking rhetoric or personal opinions about who should be allowed to exercise their rights. What makes this even more galling is the shift it represents in how certain officials talk about gun rights versus how they enforce laws around gun ownership. In the same breath that political leaders claim to defend the Second Amendment, they're endorsing enforcement positions that would criminalize responsible gun owners for conduct that is perfectly lawful and constitutionally protected. That's not balance. That's not reasonable public safety policy. That's betrayal of the most fundamental kind. For decades now, millions of hardworking Americans have done everything their government asked of them. They've taken gun safety seriously. They've passed background checks. They've earned permits through proper channels. They've carried responsibly without incident. And now they're being told that traveling with their legally owned firearm could land them in handcuffs and jail cells if they dare enter certain jurisdictions. Everyone wants public safety. That's not the disagreement here. Responsible gun owners care deeply about safety, probably more than the government officials making these threats, because responsible gun owners understand they're personally accountable for every decision they make with their firearms. The argument isn't about whether safety matters. The argument is this: you can follow every law in your home state, you can do everything required of you by multiple levels of government, and yet your constitutional rights can be completely erased simply because somebody in another jurisdiction has different policies, different enforcement priorities, or different political views. That's not constitutional governance. That is not what the founders envisioned when they wrote "shall not be infringed" into the Bill of Rights. There has to be some baseline of predictability and fairness in how constitutional rights are treated across jurisdictions. Right now, that baseline doesn't exist. We have a chaotic patchwork of conflicting rules where you can become a criminal 1 mile from your home without ever doing anything wrong, without changing your behavior, without violating any actual moral or ethical principle. You just crossed an invisible line on a map, and suddenly, you're a felon facing prison time. If we cannot protect law-abiding gun owners from being criminalized for lawful conduct, then we don't actually have a Second Amendment. We have a permission slip that government can revoke whenever officials feel like it. And that's exactly why nationwide constitutional carry and genuine reciprocity are absolutely essential right now. Constitutional carry means the legal public carrying of a firearm without needing a permit, without paying fees for permission slips, without begging bureaucrats for approval to exercise rights that pre-existed the government itself. Reciprocity means every state and jurisdiction honors your right to carry, regardless of where you obtained whatever documentation they demand, so that responsible gun owners aren't transformed into criminals just for crossing state lines. Fake lines drawn on maps that have nothing to do with whether you're actually dangerous or law-abiding. Right now, if you drive from Tennessee into certain neighboring states, you can find yourself in complete legal limbo. Your permit might not be recognized. Your lawful firearm can suddenly become grounds for arrest. And that's not freedom. That's not liberty as the founders understood it. That's a trap designed to ensnare good people and give prosecutors easy wins they can tout in press conferences. This isn't some hypothetical future battle we might face down the road. This is happening right now in Washington, D.C., in state capitals, in federal courts, with prosecutors openly declaring on national television that you'll go to jail for exercising your constitutional rights. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment right now telling me if you've ever traveled across state lines worried about whether your carry permit would be recognized. Share this with every gun owner you know, because what's happening in DC is coming to your state next if we don't push back hard. Gun owners are facing real, immediate, tangible consequences from this enforcement rhetoric. Law-abiding citizens are being explicitly targeted just for traveling with their legally owned firearms. Enforcement efforts are focused not on violent criminals who are actually hurting people, but on responsible gun owners who followed every rule and pose zero threat to public safety. And here's the kicker that should infuriate everyone, regardless of political affiliation. This threat is coming from within an administration that claimed to be pro-Second Amendment, from a political party that campaigned on protecting gun rights, from officials who were supposed to be constitutional conservatives defending American liberties, The Republican Party, or significant factions within it, are now using enforcement rhetoric that sounds identical to gun control advocacy, and they're doing it while pretending to support your rights. That's not political evolution. That's political betrayal. When the people who are supposed to be defending your constitutional rights start threatening you with jail time for exercising those rights, something has gone catastrophically wrong. And make absolutely no mistake about the trajectory here. If this rhetoric goes unchallenged, if these threats face no consequences, if gun owners just accept this as the new normal, it will spread beyond D.C. Yesterday, it was your nation's capital. Tomorrow, it's your state. Next week, it's your county. Eventually, it's your own home where government officials claim authority to criminalize your constitutionally protected conduct. This moment requires urgency and action, not passive acceptance or wait-and-see attitudes, because right now, your constitutional rights mean nothing if they can be criminalized through selective enforcement and prosecutorial discretion exercised by officials with political agendas. We need nationwide constitutional carry implemented immediately. We need genuine reciprocity that forces every jurisdiction to honor the Second Amendment rights of every American. But more than legislative fixes, we need political leaders with the courage and integrity to actually defend the Constitution rather than making enforcement decisions based on what sounds good in press conferences or plays well with certain constituencies. This isn't some abstract academic debate about constitutional theory that legal scholars can discuss in law review articles. This is about whether your fundamental right to self-defense can be taken away by a bureaucrat with a title and a microphone. This is about whether the Constitution means what it says, or whether it's just a suggestion that government officials can ignore whenever they find it inconvenient. This is about whether we're citizens with rights or subjects with privileges that can be revoked at government whim. Here's your bottom line, and every American needs to grapple with this seriously. If a government official who was appointed by elected leaders and sworn to uphold the law can stand on national television and openly declare that licensed, law-abiding gun owners will be arrested simply for carrying their legally owned firearms, then every gun owner in America, and every American who cares about constitutional rights generally, needs to ask one fundamental question. Are you going to let them get away with it? Are you going to accept that your rights only exist when government officials feel generous enough to recognize them? Are you going to tolerate this kind of threat from people who work for you, who are employed by your tax dollars, who derive their authority from a constitution they're openly defying? Because make no mistake about what's actually happening here. This isn't a debate anymore about competing policy visions or different approaches to public safety. This is a fight over whether constitutional rights mean anything at all. And if we don't stand up right now and demand nationwide constitutional carry, genuine reciprocity, and accountability for officials who threaten law-abiding citizens, then all of our rights, not just gun rights, but every constitutional protection we think we have, will be the next thing they try to criminalize. This is our Second Amendment. This is our freedom. These rights don't come from prosecutors or presidents or politicians of any party. They don't come from bureaucrats with titles or officials with enforcement authority. They come from our humanity, they're recognized by our Constitution, and they cannot legitimately be taken away by government officials who don't like them or find them inconvenient. It's time we defend these rights with the same intensity that government officials are attacking them. No exceptions, no excuses, no partisan loyalty that matters more than constitutional principle. I don't care who you voted for in the last election. I don't care which political party you think is doing a phenomenal job on other issues. When government officials start threatening jail time for law-abiding gun owners exercising constitutional rights, that's where the line gets drawn. That's where every American who cares about liberty needs to stand up and say enough. Subscribe to this channel, share this video everywhere, make your voice heard with elected officials, and demand accountability for anyone who thinks they can criminalize your constitutional rights. This fight matters more than political teams or partisan talking points. This is about whether we're actually free or just pretending to be.